Hello, everyone. Today I'm with the Patriot Barbie. Thank you for being with me.
You're very welcome. Thank you for being with me.
So, your whole life kind of changed when you said no. Can you go into your story a little bit?
Yes. So it's kind of what I'm notorious for. In 2020, when everybody got locked down for COVID, my husband and I owned six businesses in Oregon, and we did close down for 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and then three, four, five, six. And it's hard to even imagine, but at that 6 week mark, still nobody in America was reopening. Everyone was still being compliant and staying shut down, except for like one or two people. So I was probably the second or third, maybe fourth person in America to say, I'm opening back up. It wasn't political, it wasn't spiritual. It was that we seriously were going to have to start selling off our belongings to pay the bills that we were acquiring, owning six businesses that we couldn't operate. So I opened back up against the government. And that, honestly, their behavior is what made it global news. My governor was Democrat Kate Brown, and she threatened to kick me out of my building, throw me in jail, issue me a Class C misdemeanor, fine me every day. Finally, she sent Child Protective Services after my kids, my three kids, and the nation blew up. Like, that was it. That was the last straw. So, because of all of the news coverage that received, I became, weirdly enough, like a conservative icon, and was in the political space all of a sudden. And BLM said they were going to burn down my salon, so I did a call to arms, protected my business, and we got completely cancel cultured. So we didn't lose our business because of the government. I actually fought the government back, and I never shut back down. We lost six businesses due to cancel culture. We had to move out of Oregon, leave our family, friends, home behind, close or sell all of our businesses. And we moved to Arizona, where I talked to God about what had happened to us and why. And he very boldly told me that I was supposed to be, a face in the conservative movement and be a voice and use my story to empower other people. So that is how I became the Patriot Barbie. And it's been a beautiful journey.
That's insane. What's the feeling like having the left come at you full force and being so-called canceled?
It's, I can talk about it, very openly now, but at the time it was happening, it was very, very vile. We were getting death threats. My kids were getting threats. They would send horrible, horrible messages to my husband and I. So, six businesses, they each had a website, a Facebook, an Instagram, an email, a phone number, all of social media. They would go in and mess with and message and call all of those businesses on all of those platforms. So it was like 24 hours a day, nonstop barrage of hate and threats and cuss words and name calling and slander. It was, at the time, it was horrific. I tell people that a lesser person would have committed suicide. They really did a great job of making me feel like the world hated me for what I was doing. It's very, very violent cancel culture.
I can't believe that. Absolutely cannot believe how they treat and cancel, all because you wouldn't shut down your business. Did the government ever back off after you said, no, I'm not shutting back down?
No, they harassed me almost every day until the governor technically reopened the county. So I reopened May 2nd. May 5th. And I fought them tooth and nail, for weeks. I'm pretty sure that they didn't reopen our county until I think it was like May 17th, May 20th. And every single day up until that day, they were threatening me with something new. So it was nonstop.
That's also how you got the name Patriot Barbie.
It is, yes. When the left was attacking me throughout this whole period as well, they were making memes out of my face, calling me like the COVID killer, like weird things like that, that we would never think of. Someone made a meme out of my face wearing a MAGA hat and said, I don't always play Patriot Barbie, but when I do, I kill people's grandmas and steal people's money. And I was like, first of all, I didn't kill anyone. Like, literally, no one has tested positive for COVID in my salon. Never did. Second of all, a give, send, go isn't stealing. It's donations. Third of all, did you just call me the Patriot Barbie? Because I'm pretty sure that's not an insult.
Right.
So I went and changed all my social media to Patriot Barbie just to like stick it to them. And that it became a thing.
How strong were your political views before 2020 happened?
No, they were not strong at all. I was not paying attention to politics, not at all. In fact, on Facebook, you have all these little boxes you can fill out in your bio, hobbies, music, things like that. Under politics, I had actually written, I don't do politics. So I did not, I voted for Trump because he seemed like a good candidate, but yet I think 2 years before I'd voted for Obama. It was like, I was not paying attention.
Yeah. 2020 for me, really, I was in college during that time. And that's really when I was like, oh, something's off here. Like, it was just an experience for me that I really was like, okay, this is where I'm invested. I'm interested, and something's not adding up here. And so I'm going to follow it. So I would agree. 2020 was a time, I think, where a lot of people were like, okay, this is a little fishy.
Yeah, I think a lot of people talk about COVID so negatively, and it harmed so many people. But it wasn't COVID that harmed people. It was the government's reaction to COVID. It was their enforcement of tyranny and overreach that harmed children and families and businesses. And I say that I am glad that, that they did what they did, because it woke so many people up. And I think if they hadn't woken us up, everything that's happening right now culturally and socially, we would be more prone to accept, because we weren't made so aware of what they were capable of in 2020.
Yep, 100% agree with you. Recently, you posted a video about waiting in line at Starbucks, talking to people. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think it's absolutely fantastic.
Yes. So I have been an avid boycotter of Starbucks for I would say about 3 years. And for me, it was, I don't know if you remember, but there was a Starbucks employee that refused to serve a police officer. Said he was racist, called the entire police department racist. And then that really angered me, because the men in my family are all law enforcement or retired law enforcement. And I'm a Back the Blue advocate. And then a few weeks later, maybe not that far, shortly after, another Starbucks employee had written pig on a police officer's cup. They write your name. Well, he or she had written pig. And so it was like, you know what? I'm done with you guys. That's all it takes for me, is that kind of disrespect, and the fact that these employees aren't getting reprimanded for their non-inclusivity, right, of an acceptance of another, something they don't agree with. And I boycotted Starbucks about then. Well, then, of course, they were the first to donate $100 million to BLM and other racial groups. They were the first to fly the BLM, flags. They have pride propaganda, garnishing their stores, not just during Pride Month, but all the time. They are the epitome of like the wokest company in America. And so they donate to Planned Parenthood. They fund abortions for their employees. They fund gender reassignment for their employees. There is nothing they do that I agree with. Nothing. And so I've been boycotting them for years. But I think other people needed to be aware, if they're not, which I think is shocking, at what this company does and this huge corporation and where they're spending their money. So Pamela Jean Noble, Kendall in Kentucky, and I, along with Live Action, we went to Starbucks and held signs that says Starbucks donates to kill babies, Starbucks donates to mutilate children, Starbucks donates to racial division. If you get out of line, we will buy your coffee to go anywhere else. And that is exactly what we did. This is our own dollars out of our pocket. We encouraged 11 out of 15 people to back out of line take our $5 and go anywhere else. And, the amount of people that had no clue about these things was shocking, and yet not in a judgmental way, because like I said, prior to 2020, I wasn't awake either. So I wasn't paying attention to this stuff. It's amazing to wake people up. It's amazing to give them the information that they're not going on Google and actively looking up or researching themselves. But when you tell it to them, they make a decision based on that information right then and there. And so they backed out of line, took our $5 and went somewhere else. And it was glorious.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking, like, what would I do if, obviously I know what I would do, but having the facts presented to you when you're in line, like just the pure fact that 11 out of 15 people said, okay, we'll take the $5 and go somewhere else. Like, I think that's a really good judge of where a lot of Americans are at. Like, you give them education and facts, and they're like, okay, yeah, it's the same thing that's happening with Target and that's happened with Bud Light and probably will continue to happen, is once these things are exposed, Americans are like, okay, we'll have an alternative to go to.
That's right. And you know what? When they took our $5 and left, I said, listen, happy to pay for your coffee today, but please remember that this can't be just a today thing. This isn't going to do enough damage today if you take your money elsewhere. You need to remember this with all the stores that you shop at, and you need to remember this going forward and not support Starbucks moving forward. And they would go, we agree, we're not coming back. So, whether they do or not, that's on them. But knowing that we've enforced them and given them education to make this decision for a lifetime, hopefully it does a lot of damage to Starbucks, and they start to listen to their real client base, which is the hardworking conservative families of America.
Right. And also, you never know what God's using to plant seeds. And so, like out of those 11 people, you can impact a lot of people's lives. Like in that situation, I would probably think and process on it for a couple of days, and then I'd share the story. And so you never know, like, the bigger impact that those situations have, because 11 people could go and tell 3 people and 33 people are impacted. And then you post it on social media. Like, it's just so cool to see how God works and like the little details in planting seeds, because we never know the impact that could have. Could open up a great conversation with somebody who didn't think about it before.
That's right. And one woman had even gotten into line. She had a gift card. She ignored our signs. But when she got her coffee, she came back around, and then she's like, so what are you guys doing? We're like, oh, darn it, she already got her coffee. Well, then we told her what we were doing. And she's the one that shared a story where she had gone to Planned Parenthood almost 30 years ago. And Planned Parenthood said, your baby has Down syndrome. We highly encourage you to abort. And she said, I'm not going to abort. I trust the Lord with my child. Her child is perfectly healthy. She's 27 years old now, married, beautiful, intelligent. And to think that that woman would have lived with the regret of killing her baby for 30 years and the rest of her life, and that baby is that little girl was completely healthy. And what this woman didn't know was that Starbucks supports and donates to Planned Parenthood. So it's like, okay, I am aware that I don't like Planned Parenthood. I was not aware that the coffee shop that I shop at was donating to Planned Parenthood. So she said, I won't come back. I used my gift card and I'm done.
It's very impactful. Wow. And the other thing that gets me with where we're at right now is trans athletes competing against women. I can't wrap my brain around it. And even it's something that we hear like a lot, in conservative media and also on the news. But we actually have a coworker here who went to track state finals, and her cousin, who was supposed to win it, I'll take the names out. A trans athlete had transferred from another state to this particular state to be able to compete as a trans athlete at the state finals. And guess who won, right? Her cousin lost second to this trans athlete. So like, it's just, we fought so hard for certain things, and it's watching everybody who say they're feminists, all of a sudden now men are competing against women, and it's okay.
It's terrible. It's terrible. If we don't stand up for our rights, and I would love it if more men would come up and knight in shining armor, stand up. But the fight is ours. And if we've learned anything, it's that no one is going to fight your fights for you. You can wish that they'd come alongside you, and certainly people will. But we women have to stand up and say, I will not compete against a man because that is not fair. And if it's not fair, I'm not participating. If I was taking whatever the drugs are that you take to emphasize your body, what is it? It's illegal. What is it? Yeah, hormones. There's one that steroids. Thank you. If I was taking steroids, I would be kicked out of the meet because it's against the rules. Why? Because it makes it unfair. So if it's not fair, don't compete. And women need to be making a stand and saying, I'm not going to be in a pageant. I'm not going to run a race, and I'm not going to swim if there's a man that's competing with me, because then that's just not fair.
It is. Can you tell me the background behind your God's Promise merch?
Yeah. Well, the rainbow belongs to God. It always has. In Genesis, it says, I will put a rainbow in the sky to promise us that he will never flood the earth again. A lot of people find it so incredibly ironic, and yet not, that would be the symbol that the LGBTQ cult would adopt. It's so blatantly from the Bible. They could have created any emblem or logo that they wanted. They took something that was biblical. And I am not ashamed, and no one should be ashamed, to wear a rainbow on their shirt, because it doesn't belong to the LGBTQ community. It belongs to God. And so we came out with a shirt this month that has a huge rainbow on it that says God's Promise. And we specifically launched it during Pride Month because, well, the LGBTQ community should be inclusive, right? It's inclusive to allow us to use the rainbow for what we believe that it's intended for. And that is biblical, and that is God's promise. If they don't like it, they're a bigot.
Right. I actually met somebody, a new friend, and she pulled out her purse, and it was a rainbow purse. And she was like, oh, don't worry. This is my God's Promise purse. And when I tell you that, like, I always remember that because it's so true. She's like, other people, I've had a couple of conversations where people don't think that it's about God's promise. And it's a great opportunity for me to be able to explain that we had the rainbow first, that it was the Lord's rainbow of the promise to his people. So when I saw your merch about that, I was like, I love that because I just had that experience.
Well, if this is encouragement to anybody, it's Pride Month. We came out with it. It's a cute design. I think it's cute. We sold out of it in 3 hours and placed a new order, and we are almost sold out of that. So I have to place another order today. People are like, done. Christians are done. We should be done. Like, we should have been done a long time ago. The amount of disrespect it takes for this community to put their sex life on a pedestal and demand flags and ice cream and merch and baby stuff and books, and it belongs to our Lord and Savior. We should be beyond irate. We should be turning over tables like Jesus did, angry, righteous anger about the disrespect of what is biblical. And so people buying this shirt like mad, to me, says, dude, Christians are done being passive about this, and we should be. There is no reason we should be sitting by and being tolerant of this community, making their sex life a golden idol and worshiping it all month long.
I agree. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing with Freedom Square.
Okay, so Freedom Square is one of the most groundbreaking apps, I think, to reach our community. And it's launching at the perfect time. I just told you that people are sick to death of what the community is doing with the rainbow. People are sick to death of what's happening in schools. Normal people like me and you are rising up, and we are not only done with what's happening in America, but we're ready to take our business, our life, our lifestyles somewhere else and support conservatives. And so what I love about Freedom Square is they are freedom loving. Okay, call that conservative if you want to. They are inclusive, but it's all about freedom. It's about podcasts that speak truth, that speak about freedom, that speak about biblical values. It's news that's unbiased, that you want to hear, that you can customize and see what you want to see. and its resources, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, everything you need in like one platform, right? So like say you were going to have a networking event with a bunch of conservatives. Well, instead of an actual event, you would go onto their online platform. You can connect with people, post on a social feed, find businesses that align with your values, watch the news podcasts you want, and knowing that you're not getting any woke crap. Like they literally vet every single person, business, podcast, and news channel that they let on the network. They vet them. You are never going to accidentally get a woke company in there. And I love it. It's exactly what America needs right now, is a way for all of the conservatives and patriots to come together and unite in one single area. And I am their director of media relations. So I'm like the spokesperson for the company, of course, because I stand so much for freedom. My podcast is on there. My business is on there. I am 100% like a complete advocate for this company. And they're moving mountains. They've got a lot of stuff going in the background that people aren't even aware of yet. It's going to be huge. And so anyone jumping on board now is jumping on at the grandfather level, because this platform is going places.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited. I was telling Chuck, I told him a couple things, but I have family members who were political prisoners in Cuba. And so when we were talking about the name behind Freedom Square and how it really resonates with every single American differently, it's really true, because you never know what somebody's story is and how that word freedom resonates with each of us. The second thing is I love how, because like when I look up news, right, I'm like, I go to this one source, then I go to the next one, then I go to the other one. And so when I saw that like all of my favorite conservative news articles all in one place, I was like, this is fantastic. I can read and get real facts and know what's going on fast, but also concise in one app. I thought it was brilliant. It's like, I've never seen anyone do it.
Right. You know what's funny is a lot of conservatives are using Instagram and social media as their ability to get news. But then one of two things are going to happen. You're either going to get the wrong information because it's just an influencer like me spouting off the facts. Instead of actually reading the article, they're just listening to me. Well, I'm not perfect. I'm not always right. And I'm certainly not a journalist. So I'm going to screw up. The other thing, too, is that sometimes when you're scrolling social media, you're getting the same story over and over again. You're not getting the different versions of different stories. You're not getting politics and social issues and school corruption and this. You're getting, like Trump was arrested yesterday. Okay, well, that's all we saw on social media. There's other news going on. What else is going on? Well, Freedom Square has all the different outlets, and they all report on different things. So when you get to the feed and you check out the news, you are not seeing the same article about the same thing over and over again. You're seeing all the different news that's happening around the world, which I think is amazing, because that is one thing about social media that bothers me is scrolling social media. Usually I'm scrolling it for content, but I'm seeing the same content and the same people talk about the same thing. And it's like, is there anything going on besides this? Besides Target, besides Starbucks? I get real news on Freedom Square, more like political things that I would never have been aware of, social issues, economic issues. And I have my favorite news. The way that people write is so different. So I have my favorite news reporters. I love Breitbart Media. So they're at the very, very top of my news feed. And that's the thing, too, is some of the news outlets report on the same type of thing. And so you're like, okay, I maybe don't care as much about like economic reporting as I do political or social. And so I pick my social and political news outlets to be at the top of my feed. So I know that I'm getting what I want to see very, very first in my feed.
Well, I'm excited to see what you guys will do over the next couple months and years. And we're excited to be a part of it. And actually, Citizens Defending Freedom, we're very, very grateful that we were able to connect with Freedom Square at NRB this year.
Yeah. We're uniting people. Like the guys that run it and myself, we are in it for the right reasons. I've spent a lot of time with the CEO, the CMO, everyone involved in this company. Everybody is in it for the right reasons. There is no weird, self-absorbed, egotistical agenda. Everyone in it has wholesome motives, morals, convictions. And when we're at events like that, you can tell it's like, how can we help this other company? How can we connect with this other company? How can we help this business find more conservative shoppers? How can this podcast get elevated because this podcast host is saying what needs to be said, and we want to elevate her or his voice? Like, there's no other ulterior motive there except, hey, we are here to unite America, so how can we give you a voice to help unite America? And you don't often find that in companies, people that aren't financially motivated or selfishly motivated, but every single person involved with Freedom Square has a dramatic story about why they are doing this for the right reasons for America.
Mm-hmm. And that's hard to find nowadays, people who are in it for the right reasons. So we really appreciate that. And Lindsay, I appreciate you coming on our podcast today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, Lindsay.